Sinfiotli's end. Sigmund, Volsung's son, was a king in Frankland. Sinfiotli was the eldest of his sons, the second was Helgi, the third Hamund. Borghild, Sigmund's wife, had a brother named Gunnar, but Sinfiotli, her stepson, and Gunnar both courted one woman, on which account Sinfiotli slew Gunnar. When he came home, Borghild bade him go away, but Sigmund offered the blood fine, which it was incumbent on her to accept. At the funeral feast Borghild presented the bier. She took a large horn full of poison and offered it to Sinfiotli, who, when he looked into the horn and saw that there was poison in it, said to Sigmund, "The drink ferments." Sigmund took the horn and drank up the contents. It is said that Sigmund was so strong that no poison could hurt him, either outwardly or inwardly, but that all his sons could endure poison outwardly. Borghild bore another horn to Sinfiotli, and prayed him to drink, when all took place as before. Yet a third time she offered him the horn, using reproachful words on his refusing to drink. He said as before to Sigmund, but the latter answered, "Let it pass through thy lips, my son." Sinfiotli drank and instantly died. Sigmund bore him a long way in his arms, and came to a long and narrow firth, where there was a little vessel and one man in it. He offered Sigmund to convey him over the firth, but when Sigmund had borne that corpse into the vessel, the boat was full laden. The man then said that Sigmund should go before through the firth. He then pushed off his boat and instantly departed. King Sigmund sojourned long in Denmark, in Borghild's kingdom, after having espoused her. He then went south to Frankland, to the kingdom he there possessed. There he married Hiordis, the daughter of Eylimi. Sigurd was their son. King Sigmund fell in battle with the sons of Hunding. Hiordis was afterwards married to Alf, son of King Hialprek, with whom Sigurd grew up in childhood. Sigmund and his sons exceeded all other men in strength and stature, and courage, and all accomplishments, though Sigurd was foremost of all. And in old traditions he is mentioned as excelling all men, and as the most renowned of warlike kings. The First Lay of Sigurd Fafnicide, or Gripir's prophecy. Gripir was the name of the son of Eylimi, the brother of Hiordis. He ruled over lands and was of all men wisest and prescient of the future. Sigurd rode alone and came to Gripir's dwelling. Sigurd was of a distinguished figure. He found a man to address outside the hall, whose name was Geitir. Sigurd applied to him and asked, "Who here inhabits in these towers? What nation's king do people name him?" Geitir. Gripir is named the chief of men, he who rules a firm realm and people. Sigurd. Is the wise king of the land at home? Will the chief with me come and converse? With him needs speech an unknown man. I desire speedily Gripir to see. Geitir. The glad king of Geitir asks, who the man is that demands speech of Gripir. Sigurd. Sigurd I am named, born of Sigmund, and Hiordis is the chieftain's mother. Then went Geitir, Gripir to inform. Here is a man without, a stranger come, of aspect he is most distinguished. He desires king with thee to speak. Goes from the hall the lord of men, and the stranger prince kindly greets. Welcome, Sigurd. Better had it been earlier, but do thou, Geitir, take charge of Grani. They began to talk, and much to tell, when the sagacious men together met. Tell me, if thou knowest, my mother's brother, how will Sigurd's life fall out? Gripir. Thou wilt foremost be of men beneath the sun, exalted high above every king, liberal of gold, but of flight sparing, of aspect comely, and wise of words. Sigurd. Say, thou sage king, more than I ask, thou wise one, to Sigurd, if thou thinkst to see it, what will first happen for my advancement, when from thy dwelling I shall have departed? Gripir. First wilt thou, prince, avenge thy father, and for the wrongs of Eylimi wilt retaliate. Thou wilt the cruel sons of Hunding boldly lay low, thou wilt have victory. Sigurd. Say, noble king, kinsman mine, with all forethought, as we hold friendly converse, seest thou of Sigurd those bold achievements that will highest soar under heaven's regions? Gripir. Thou alone wilt slay that glistening serpent, which greedy lies in Nidahide. Thou shalt of both the slayer be, Regin and Fafnir. Gripir tells truly. Sigurd. Riches will abound if I so bring conflict among men, as thou for certain sayest. Apply thy mind, and at length say what will yet my life befall. Gripir. Thou wilt find Fafnir's lair, and thence wilt take splendid riches, with gold wilt load Grani's back. thou wilt to Giuki ride, the war-famed prince. Sigurd. Yet must thou, prince, in friendly speech foresighted king, more relate. I shall be in Giuki's guest, and I shall thence depart. What next will my life befall? Gripir. A king's daughter will on a mountain sleep, fair, in corslet cased, after Helgi's death. Thou wilt strike with a keen sword, wilt the corslet sever with Fafnir's bane. Sigurd. The corslet is ripped open, the maid begins to speak. When awakened from her sleep, on what wilt she chiefly with Sigurd converse hold, which to the prince's benefit may tend? Gripir. She to thee, powerful one, runes will teach, all those which men ought to know, and in every man's tongue to speak, and medicines for healing. May good await thee, king. Sigurd. Now that is past, the knowledge is acquired, and I am ready thence away to ride. Apply thy mind, and at length say what more will my life befall. Gripir. Thou wilt find Heimir's dwellings, and the glad guest wilt be of that great king. Vanished is Sigurd, that which I foresaw. No further mayst thou Gripir question. Sigurd. Now bring me grief the words thou speakest, for thou foreseest, king, much further. Thou knowest of too great calamity to Sigurd. Therefore thou, Gripir, wilt not utter it. Gripir. Of thy life the early portion lay before me clearest to contemplate. I am not truly accounted sage, nor the future prescient. That which I knew is gone. Sigurd. No man I know on the earth's surface, who greater prescience has than thou, Gripir. Thou mayest not conceal it, unhappy though it be, or if ill betide my life. Gripir. Not with vices will thy life be sullied. Let that, noble prince, in thy mind be born. For while mankind exists, thy name, director of the spear-storm, will be supreme. Sigurd. The worst seems to me that Sigurd is compelled from the king to part in such uncertainty. Show me the way. All is decreed before, great chieftain, if thou wilt my mother's brother. Gripir. To Sigurd I will now openly tell, since the chieftain me thereto compels. Thou wilt surely find that I not lie. A certain day is for thy death decreed. Sigurd. I would not importune the mighty prince, but rather Gripir's good counsel have. Now I fain would know, though grateful it may not be, what prospect Sigurd has lying before him. Gripir. There is with Heimir a maiden fair of form. She is by men Brynhild named, daughter of Budli, but the dear king Heimir nurtures the hard-souled damsel. Sigurd. What is it to me, although the maiden be of aspect fair, nurtured with Heimir, that thou, Gripir, must fully declare? For thou foreseest my whole destiny. Gripir. She will thee bereave of almost every joy, the fair-faced foster-child of Heimir. Thou wilt not sleep, nor affairs to course, nor men regard, only this maiden thou wilt see. Sigurd. What remedy for Sigurd will be applied? Tell me that, Gripir, if it seem good to thee. Shall I obtain the damsel? With dowry purchase the lovely royal daughter? Gripir. Ye will each swear unnumbered oaths, solemnly binding, but few will keep. Hast thou been Giuki's guest one night, thou wilt have forgotten the fair ward of Heimir. Sigurd. How is that, Gripir? Explain it to me. Seest thou such fickleness in the king's mind, that with that maiden I shall be engagement broken, whom with my whole heart I thought to love? Gripir. Prince, thou wilt be snared in another's wiles. Thou wilt pay the penalty of Grimhild's craft. The bright-haired maiden, her daughter, she to thee will offer. This snare for the king she lays. Sigurd. Shall I then with Gunnar form relationship, and with Gudrun join in wedlock? Well wife then the king would be, if the pangs of perjury caused me no pain. Gripir. Thee will Grimhild wholly beguile. She will implore thee, Brynhild, to demand for the hand of Gunnar, king of Goths, the journey thou wilt forthwith promise to the king's mother. Sigurd. Evils are at hand, I can that perceive. Sigurd's wits will have wholly perished, if I shall demand for another's hand a noble maiden whom I will love. Gripir. All of you will swear mutual oaths, Gunnar and Hogni, and thou the third, and ye with forms exchange. When on the way ye are, Gunnar and thou, Gripir lies not. Sigurd. To what end is that? Why shall we exchange forms and manners when on the way we are? Another fraud will surely follow this, altogether horrible. But say on, Gripir. Gripir. Thou wilt have Gunnar's semblance and his manners, thy own eloquence, and great sagacity. There thou wilt betroth the high-minded ward of Heimir. No one can that prevent. Sigurd. To me that seems worse, that among men I shall be all false traitor called, if such take place. I would not deception practise on a royal maid, the most excellent I know. Gripir. Thou wilt repose, leader of hosts, pure with the maiden, as she thy mother were. Therefore, exalted lord of men, while the world endures thy name will be. The nuptials will of both be solemnized, of Sigurd and of Gunnar, in Giuki's halls. Then will ye forms exchange, when ye home return. Yet to himself will have each his own senses. Sigurd. Will then Gunnar, chief among men, the noble woman wed? Tell me that, Gripir, although 3 nights by me the chieftain's bride glad of heart has slept. The like has no example. How for happiness shall hereafter be this affinity? Tell me that, Gripir. Will the alliance for Gunnar's solace henceforth prove, or even for mine? Gripir. Thou wilt the oaths remember, and must silence keep, and let Gudrun enjoy a happy union. Brynhild nathless will herself think an ill-married woman. She will wiles devise to avenge herself. Sigurd. What atonement will that woman take for the frauds we have practised on her? For me the maiden has sworn oaths, but never kept, and but little joy. Gripir. She to Gunnar will plainly declare that thou didst not well the oaths observe, when the noble king, Giuki's heir, with his whole soul in thee confided. Sigurd. What will then follow? Let me know that. Will that tale appear as true, or that the noble woman falsely accuses me, and herself also? Tell me that, Gripir. Gripir. From spite towards thee and from overwhelming grief the powerful dame will not most wisely act. To the noble woman do thou no further harm, though thou the royal bride with guiles hast circumvented. Sigurd. Will the prudent Gunnar, Guthorm, and Hogni at her instigation then proceed? Will Giuki's sons on the relative redden their swords? Tell me further, Gripir. Gripir. Then will Gudrun be furious at heart, when her brother shall on thy death resolve. In nothing then will that wise woman take delight. Such is Grimhild's work. In this thou shalt find comfort, leader of hosts. This fortune is allotted to the hero's life. A more renowned man on earth shall never be, under the sun's abode, than thou wilt be accounted. Sigurd. Now part we, now farewell. Fate may not be withstood. Now hast thou, Gripir, done as I prayed thee. Thou wouldst have fain a happier end foretold me of my life's days. Hadst thou been able.
The Second Lay of Sigurd Fafnicide. Sigurd went to Hjelprik's stud, and chose himself a horse, which was afterwards named Grani. Regin, Hreidmar's son, was then come to Hjelprik. He was the most skilful of men, and a dwarf in stature. He was wise, cruel, and versed in magic. Regin undertook the rearing and instruction of Sigurd, and bore him great affection. He informed Sigurd of his parentage, and how it befell that Odin and Honir and Loki came to Enverfors, the waterfall of Envari. In the fall there was an abundance of fish. There was a dwarf named Envari, who had long lived in the fall, in the likeness of a pike, and in which he supplied himself with food. Our brother, continued Regin, was named Otter, who often went into the fall in the likeness of an otter. He had caught a salmon, and was sitting on the bank of the river with his eyes shut, eating it, when Loki killed him with a stone. The Aesir thought themselves very lucky, and stripped off the otter's skin. The same evening they sought entertainment with Hreidmar, and showed their prize. Thereupon we laid hands on them, and imposed on them, as the redemption of their lives, that they should fill the otter's skin with gold, and cover it over with red gold. They thereupon sent Loki to procure gold. He went to Ran, and obtained her net, and thence proceeded to Enverfors, and cast the net before a pike, which leapt into the net. Whereupon Loki said, What fish is this, that in the river swims, and cannot from harm itself protect? Redeem thy life from hell, and find me the water's flame. The pike. Envari I am named, Oin was my father named, many a cataract have I passed. A luckless Norn in times of old decreed that in the water I should wade. Loki. Tell me, Andvaril, if thou wilt enjoy life in the halls of men, what retribution gets the sons of mortals, if with foul words they assail each other? Andvari. Cruel retribution get the sons of mortals, who in Vadgelmir wade, for the false words they have against others uttered, the punishments too long endure. Loki viewed all the gold that Andvari owned, but when he had produced the gold, he retained a single ring, which Loki also took from him. The dwarf went into his stone and said, "That gold which the dwarf possessed shall to 2 brothers be cause of death, and to 8 princes of dissension. From my wealth no one shall good derive." The Aesir produced the gold to Hreidmar, and with it crammed the otter's skin full, and set it up on the feet. They then had to heap up the gold and cover it, but when that was done, Hreidmar, stepping forward, observed a whisker, and required it to be covered. Whereupon Odin drew forth the ring, and Vernot, and covered the hair. Loki said, "There is gold for thee, and thou hast a great redemption for my life. For thy son no blessing is decreed, of both it shall prove the bane." Hreidmar: "Gifts thou hast given, friendly gifts thou hast given not. With a kind heart thou hast not given. Of our lives you should have been deprived, had I foreknown that peril. But that is worse, what I seem to know, a strife of kinsmen for a woman. Princes yet unborn I think them to be, for whose hate that gold is destined. The red gold, I trust, I shall possess while I am living. Of thy threats I entertain no fear, so take yourselves hence home." Fafnir and Regin demanded of Hreidmar their share of the blood fine for their slain brother Otr, which he refused, and Fafnir stabbed his father with a sword while sleeping. Hreidmar called out to his daughters, "Linghide and Lofnhide, know my life is departing. To many things need compels." Linghide: "Few sisters will, although they lose a father, avenge a brother's crime." Hreidmar: "Then bring forth a daughter, wolf-hearted fury. If by a chief thou have not a son, get for the maid a spouse in thy great need, then will her son thy wrong avenge." Hreidmar then died, and Fafnir took all the gold. Regin then requested to have his share of the patrimony, but met with a refusal from Fafnir. Regin thereupon sought counsel of his sister Linghide, how he might obtain his patrimony. She said, "Thou of thy brother shalt mildly demand thy patrimony, and a better spirit. It is not seemly that with the sword thou shouldst demand thy property of Fafnir." The foregoing is what Regin related to Sigurd. One day, when he came to Regin's dwelling, he was kindly received, and Regin said, "Hither is come the son of Sigmund to our hall, that man of energy. Courage he has greater than I, aged man. Now of a conflict have I hope from the fierce wolf. I will nurture the bold-hearted prince. Now Yngvi's kinsman is to us come. He will be a king under the sun most powerful. Over all lands will his destinies resound." Sigurd was thenceforward constantly with Regin, who related to him how Fafnir lay on Nitahide in the likeness of a serpent. He had an aegis helm, at which all living beings were terror-stricken. Regin forged a sword for Sigurd that was named Gram, and was so sharp that immersing it in the Rhine, he let a piece of wool down the stream, when it clove the fleece asunder as water. With that sword Sigurd clove in two Regin's anvil. After that, Regin instigated Sigurd to slay Fafnir. He said, "Loud will laugh Hunding's sons, they who ail me of life deprived, if the prince is more desirous to seek red rings than to avenge his father." King Helprek collected a fleet to enable Sigurd to avenge his father. They encountered a great storm, and were driven past a certain promontory. A man was standing on the cliff, who said, "Who ride yonder on Revil's horses, the towering billows, the roaring mane?" "The sail-steeds are with sweat bedewed, the wave coursers will not the wind withstand." Regin: "Here am I and Sigurd in sea-trees. A fair wind is given us for death itself. Higher than our prows the steep waves dash, the rolling horses plunge. Who is it that enquires?" Hnikar: "They call me Hnikar, when I Hugin gladdened, young Volsung, and battles fought. Now they mayst call me the Ancient of the Rock, Feng, or Fjolnir. I desire a passage. They turn to the land, the old man goes on board, and the storm abates. Sigurd said, Tell me, Hnikar, since thou knowest the omens both of gods and men, which omens are the best, if to fight 'tis needful, at the swing of glaives? Hnikar. Good omens there are many, if men but knew them. At the swing of glaives, a faithful fellowship, I think, is the dark ravens with the sworded warrior. The second is, if, when thou art gone out and about to depart, thou seest two renown-seeking men standing in the forecourt. The third omen is, if wolves thou hearest howl under the ash-boughs, it will victory to thee announce over helmed warriors, if thou seest them go before thee. No man should fight against the moon's late shining sister. They have victory, who can see keenly at the play of swords, or to form the wedge array. Most perilous it is, if with thy foot thou strikest, when thou to battle goest. Wily dizzers stand on either side of thee, and wish to see thee wounded. Combed and washed let every brave man be, and at morning fed, for 'tis uncertain whither he at eve may come. 'Tis bad to succumb to fate. Sigurd fought a great battle with Lyngvi, Hunding's son, and his brothers, in which Lyngvi and his 3 brothers fell. After the battle, Regin said, Now is the bloody eagle, with the trenchant blade, graven on the back of Sigmund's lair. No son of king who the earth reddens and the raven gladdens is more excellent. Sigurd returned home to Hjalprek, when Regin instigated him to slay Fafnir. The Lay of Fafnir. Sigurd and Regin went up to Hel-ride, and there found Fafnir's slot or track, along which he crawled to the water. There on the way Sigurd made a large pit, and went down into it. When Fafnir crawled from the gold, he blew forth venom, but it flew over Sigurd's head. When Fafnir crept over the pit, Sigurd with his sword pierced him to the heart. Fafnir shook himself, and beat with his head and tail. Sigurd leapt from the pit, and each looked at the other. Fafnir said, young fellow, by what fellow art thou begot? Of what people art thou the son? That thou in Fafnir reddenest thy glittering falchion, thy sword has pierced my heart. Sigurd concealed his name, because it was the belief in those times that the words of dying persons were of great power, if they cursed an enemy by his name. Sigurd. Gofug dear I am called, but I have wandered a motherless child, nor have I a father like the sons of men. Alone I wander. Fafnir. If thou hast no father like the sons of men, by what wonder art thou begotten? Sigurd. My race, I tell thee, is to thee unknown, and myself also. Sigmund was my father named, my name is Sigurd, who with weapon have assailed thee. Fafnir. Who has incited thee? Why hast thou suffered thyself to be incited to take my life? Youth of the sparkling eyes, thou hadst a cruel father. Sigurd. My heart incited me, my hands gave me aid, and my keen sword. Rarely a man is bold, when of mature age, if in childhood he was faint-hearted. Fafnir. I know if thou hadst chanced to grow in the lap of friends, they would have seen thee fierce in fight. Now thou art a captive, taken in war, and, 'tis said, slaves ever tremble. Sigurd. Why, Fafnir, dost thou upbraid me that I am far from my paternal home? I am not a captive, although in war I was taken. Thou hast found that I am free. Fafnir. Thou wilt account only as angry words. All I to thee shall say, but I will say the truth. The jingling gold and the gleed red treasure, those rings shall be thy bane. Sigurd. Treasure at command every one desires, ever till that one day, for at some time each mortal shall hence to hell depart. Fafnir. The Norn's decree thou wilt hold in contempt, as from a witless wight. In water thou shalt be drowned, if in wind thou rowest. All things bring peril to the fated. Sigurd. Tell me, Fafnir, as thou art wise declared, and many things to know, who those Norns are, who help in need, and from babes lose the mothers. Fafnir. Very diversely born I take those Norns to be. They have no common race. Some are of Aesir race, some of Alfar race, some are Dvalin's daughters. Sigurd. Tell me, Fafnir, as thou art wise declared, and many things to know, how that home is called, where Surt and the Aesir will sword liquor together mingle. Fafnir. Oskopnir it is called. There shall the gods with lances play. Bifrost shall be broken when they go forth, and their steeds in the rivers swim. An aegis helm I bore among the sons of men, while I o'er the treasures lay. Stronger than all I thought myself to be, stronger I found not many. Sigurd. An aegis helm is no protection where men impelled by anger fight. Soon he finds, who among many comes, that no one is alone the boldest. Fafnir. Venom I blew forth, when on my father's great heritage I lay. Sigurd. Thou, glistening serpent, didst a great belching make, and wast so hard of heart. Fierceness so much the greater have the sons of men, when they possess that helm. Fafnir. Sigurd, I now counsel thee, do thou take my counsel, and hence ride home. The jingling gold and the gleed red treasure, those rings, shall be thy bane. Sigurd. Counsel regarding thee is taken, and I to the gold will ride, on the heath that lies. But lie thou, Fafnir, in the pangs of death, until hell have thee. Fafnir. Regin betrayed me, he will thee betray, he of us both will be the bane. Fafnir must, I trow, let forth his life, thine was the greater might. Regin had gone away while Sigurd slew Fafnir, but came back as Sigurd was wiping the blood from his sword. He said, Hail to thee now, Sigurd! Now hast thou victory won and Fafnir slain. Of all the men who tread the earth, thou art, I say, the bravest born. Sigurd. Uncertain 'tis to know when we all come together, sons of victorious heroes, which is the bravest born. Many a one is bold, whose sword has never broken in another's breast. Regin. Glad art thou now, Sigurd, and in thy gain rejoicing, while Gram in the grass thou driest. My brother, thou to death hast wounded, yet in some degree was I the cause. Sigurd. Thou didst me counsel, that I should ride o'er high fells hither. Treasure and life had still possessed that glistening serpent, hadst thou my anger not excited. Regin then approached Fafnir, and cut out his heart with a sword named Riddle, and afterwards drank blood from his wound. He said, Sit now, Sigurd, but I must go to sleep, and Fafnir's heart hold to the fire. Of this reflection I would fain partake after that drink of blood. Sigurd. Thou wentst far off, while I in Fafnir my keen sword reddened. With my strength I strove against the serpent's might, while in the ling thou layest. Regin. Long hadst thou allowed in the ling to lie that Jotun ode, hadst thou the sword not used that I forged for thee, thy keen-edged glaive. Sigurd. Valor is better than might of sword, when foes embittered fight, for a brave man I have ever seen gain victory with a dull sword. For the brave 'tis better than for the timid to join in the game of war. For the joyous it is better than for the sad, let come whatever may. Sigurd took Fafnir's heart and roasted it on a stick. When he thought it roasted enough, and the blood frothed from it, he touched it with his finger, to try whether it were quite done. He burned his finger, and put it in his mouth, and when Fafnir's heart's blood touched his tongue, he understood the language of birds. He heard the eagles chattering among the branches. One eagle said, There sits Sigurd, sprinkled with blood. Fafnir's heart at the fire he roasts. Wise methinks were the ring dispenser, if he the glistening life pulp ate. Second eagle. There lies Regin, communing with himself. He will beguile the youth who in him trusts. In rage he brings malicious words together. The framer of evil will avenge his brother. Third Eagle. By the head shorter, let him the hoary babbler send hence to hell. Then can he all the gold possess alone, the mass that under Fafnir lay. Fourth Eagle. He would methinks be prudent, if he could have your friendly counsel, my sisters. If he would bethink himself and Hugin gladden. There I expect the wolf, where his ears I see. Fifth Eagle. Not so prudent is that tree of battle, as I that martial leader had supposed, if he one brother lets depart, now he the other has of life bereft. Sixth Eagle. He is most simple, if he longer spares that people's pest. There lies Regin, who has betrayed him. He cannot guard against it. Seventh Eagle. By the head shorter let him make the ice-cold Jutun, and of his rings deprive him. Then of that treasure thou, which Fafnir owned, sole lord will be. Sigurd. Fate shall not so resistless be, that Regin shall my death word bear, for the brothers both shall speedily go hence to hell. Sigurd cut off the head of Regin, and then ate Fafnir's heart, and drank the blood of both Regin and Fafnir. He then heard the eagle saying, Bind thou, Sigurd, the red gold rings. It is not kingly many things to fear. I a maid know by far the fairest, with gold adorned. Couldst thou but her obtain. Second Eagle. To Giuki lead all verdant ways. The fates point out to wayfarers where the good king a born daughter has. Her wilt thou, Sigurd, purchase with bridal gifts. Third Eagle. There stands a hall on the high Hindarfjall. Without 'tis all with fire surrounded. Sagacious men have it constructed on the resplendent radiance of the flood. Fourth Eagle. On the fell I know a warrior made to sleep. Over her waves the linden's bane. Ig Willem stuck a sleep-thorn in the robe of the maid who would heroes choose. Thou, youth, mayest see the helmed maiden, her whom Ving's corner from battle bore. May not Sigurdrifa's slumber break the son of warriors against the Norn's decrees. Sigurd rode along Fafnir's track to his lair, which he found open. The doors and doorposts were of iron. Of iron also were all the beams in the house, but the treasure was buried in the earth. Sigurd found there a great quantity of gold, and filled 2 chests with it. He took thence the aegis helm, a golden corslet, the sword named Hroti, and many precious things, all which he laid on Granny, but the horse would not proceed until Sigurd had mounted on his back. The Lay of Sigrdrifa. Sigurd rode up the Hindarfjall, and directed his course southwards towards Frankland. In the fell he saw a great light, as if a fire were burning, which blazed up to the sky. On approaching it, there stood a skjaldborg, and over it a banner. Sigurd went into the skjaldborg and saw a warrior laying within it, asleep, completely armed. He first took the helmet off the warrior's head, and saw that it was a woman. Her corslet was as fast as if it had grown to her body. With his sword, Gram, he ripped the corslet from the upper opening downwards, and then through both sleeves. He then took the corslet off from her when she awoke, sat up, and, on seeing Sigurd, said, "What has my corslet cut? Why from sleep have I started? Who has cast from me the fallow bands?" Sigurd. Sigmund's son has just now ripped the raven's perch, with Sigurd's sword. She. Long have I slept, long been with sleep oppressed. Long are mortal sufferings. Odin is the cause that I have been unable to cast off torpor. Sigurd sat down and asked her name. She then took a horn filled with mead and gave him the Minis cup. She. Hail to day, hail to the sons of day. To night and her daughter, hail. With placid eyes behold us here, and here sitting give us victory. Hail to the Aesir, hail to the Sinir, hail to the bounteous earth. Words and wisdom give to us noble twain, and healing hands while we live. She was named Sigurdrifa, and was a Valkyria. She said that 2 kings had made war on each other, one of whom was named Hjálmgunnar. He was old and a great warrior, and Odin had promised him victory. The other was Agnar, a brother of Hoda, whom no divinity would patronize. Sigurdrifa overcame Hjálmgunnar in battle, in revenge for which Odin pricked her with a sleep thorn, and declared that henceforth she should never have victory in battle, and should be given in marriage. But I said to him that I had bound myself by a vow not to espouse any man who could be made to fear. Sigurd answers and implores her to teach him wisdom, as she had intelligence from all regions. Sigurdrifa. Beer I bear to thee, column of battle, with might mingled and with bright glory. 'Tis full of song and salutary saws, of potent incantations and joyous discourses. Zigrunes thou must know, if victory, Sigurd, thou wilt have, and on thy sword's hilt grave them, some on the chapes, some on the guard, and twice name the name of Ty. All runes thou must know, if thou wilt not that another's wife thy trust betray, if thou in her confide. On the horn must they be graven, and on the hand's back, and gnawed on the nail bescored. A cup must be blessed, and against peril guarded, and garlic in the liquor cast. Then I know thou wilt never have mead with treachery mingled. Bjarg runes thou must know, if thou wilt help, and loose the child from women. In the palm they must be graven, and round the joints be clasped, and the dizzard prayed for aid. Brim runes thou must know, if thou wilt have secure afloat thy sailing steeds. On the prow they must be graven, and on the helm blade, and with fire to the oar applied. No surge shall be so towering, nor wave so dark, but from the ocean thou safe shalt come. Limb runes thou must know, if thou a leech wouldst be, and wounds know how to heal. On the bark they must be graven, and on the leaves of trees, of those whose boughs bend eastward. Mal runes thou must know, if thou wilt that no one for injury with hate requite thee. Those thou must wind, those thou must wrap round, those thou must altogether place in the assembly, where people have into full court to go. Hug runes thou must know, if thou a wiser man will be than every other. Those interpreted, those graved, those devised wrought, from the fluid which had leaked from Heidropnir's head, and from Hoddropnir's horn. On a rock he stood with edged sword, a helm on his head he bore. Then spake Mim's head its first wise word, and true sayings uttered. They are, it said, on the shield graven, which stands before the shining god, on Arvark's ear, and on Osvid's hoof, on the wheel which rolls under Rognir's car, on Sleipnir's teeth, and on the sledge's bands, on the bear's paw, and on Bragi's tongue, on the wolf's claws and the eagle's beak, on bloody wings, and on the bridge's end, on the releasing hand, and on healing's track, on glass and on gold, on amulets of men, in wine and in wort, and in the welcome seat, on Gungnir's point, and on Grani's breast, on the Norn's nail, and on the owl's neb. All were erased that were inscribed, and mingled with the sacred mead, and sent on distant ways. They are with the Aesir, they are with the Alfar, some with the wise Vanir, some human beings have. Those are Bok runes, those are Bjarg runes, and all Ol runes, and precious Megan runes, for those who can, without confusion or corruption, turn them to his welfare. Use, if thou hast understood them, until the powers perish. Now thou shalt choose, since a choice is offered thee, keen-armed warrior, my speech or silence. Think over it in thy mind. All evils have their measure. Sigurd. I will not flee, though thou shouldst know me doomed. I am not born a craven. Thy friendly counsels all I will receive, as long as life is in me. Sigurdrifa. This I thee counsel first, that towards thy kin thou bear thee blameless. Take not hasty vengeance, although they raise up strife. That, it is said, benefits the dead. This I thee counsel secondly, that no oath thou swear if it be not true. Cruel bonds follow broken faith. accursed is the faith-breaker. This I thee counsel thirdly, that in the assembly thou contend not with a fool, for an unwise man oft utters words worse than he knows of. All is vain if thou holdest silence, then wilt thou seem a craven-born, or else truly accused. Doubtful is a servant's testimony, unless a good one thou gettest. On the next day let his life go forth, and so men's lives reward. This I counsel thee fourthly, if a wicked sorceress dwells by the way, to go on is better than there to lodge, though night may overtake thee. Of searching eyes the sons of men have need, and fiercely they have to fight. Oft pernicious women by the wayside sit, whose swords and valor deaden. This I thee counsel fifthly, although thou see fair women on the benches sitting, let not their kindred silver over thy sleep have power. To kiss thee entice no woman. This I thee counsel sixthly, although among men pass offensive tipsy talk, never while drunken quarrel with men of war. Wine steals the wits of many. Brawls and drink to many men have been a heartfelt sorrow, to some their death, to some calamity. Many are the griefs of men. This I thee counsel seventhly, if thou hast disputes with a daring man, better it is for men to fight than to be burned within their dwelling. This I thee counsel eighthly, that thou guard thee against evil, and eschew deceit. Entice no maiden, nor wife of men, nor to wantonness incite. This I thee counsel ninthly, that thou corpses bury, wherever on the earth thou findest them, whether from sickness they have died, or from the sea, or are from weapons dead. Let a mound be raised for those departed, that their hands and head be washed, combed, and wiped dry, ere in the coffin they are laid, and pray for their happy sleep. This I thee counsel tenthly, that thou never trust a false kinsman's promises, whose brother thou hast slain, or sire laid low. There is a wolf in a young son, though he with gold be gladdened. Strifes and fierce enmities think not to be lulled, no more than deadly injury. Wisdom and fame in arms a prince not easily acquires, who shall of men be foremost. This I counsel thee eleventhly, that thou at evil look, what course it may take. A long life, it seems to me, the prince may not enjoy. Fierce disputes will arise. Sigurd said, A wiser mortal exists not, and I swear that I will possess thee, for thou art after my heart. She answered, Thee I will have before all others, though I have to choose among all men. And this they confirmed with oaths to each other. Fragments of the Lay of Sigurd and Brynhild. Sigurd then rides away from Hindarfjall, and journeys on till he comes to the habitation of Heimir, who was married to Beckhild, Brynhild's sister. Alsvid, Heimir's son, who was at play when Sigurd arrived at the mansion, received him kindly, and requested him to stay with him. Sigurd consented, and remained there a short time. Brynhild was, at that time, with Heimir, and was weaving within a gold border the great exploits of Sigurd. One day, when Sigurd was come from the forest, his hawk flew to the window, at which Brynhild sat, employed on weaving. Sigurd ran after it, saw the lady, and appeared struck with her handiwork and beauty. On the following day, Sigurd went to her apartment, and Alsvid stood outside the door shafting arrows. Sigurd said, Hail to thee, lady, or how fares it with thee? She answered, We are well, my kindred and friends are living, but it is uncertain what anyone's lot may be till their last day. He sat down by her. Brynhild said, The seat will be allowed to few, unless my father comes. Sigurd answered, Now is that come to pass which thou didst promise me. She said, Here shalt thou be welcome. She then arose, and her 4 maidens with her, and, approaching him with a golden cup, bade him drink. He reached towards her, and took hold of her hand together with the cup, and placed her by him, clasped her round the neck, kissed her, and said, "A fairer than thou was never born." She said, "It is not wise to place faith in women, for they so often break their promise." He said, "Better days will come upon us, so that we may enjoy happiness." Brynhild said, "It is not ordained that we shall live together, for I am a shield maiden." Sigurd said, "Then will our happiness be best promoted if we live together, for harder to endure is the pain which herein lies than from a keen weapon." Brynhild said, "I shall be called to the aid of warriors, but thou wilt espouse Gudrun, Giuki's daughter." Sigurd said, "No king's daughter shall ensnare me, therefore have not two thoughts on that subject. And I swear by the gods that I will possess thee and no other woman." She answered to the same effect. Sigurd thanked her for what she had said to him, and gave her a gold ring. He remained there a short time in great favour. Sigurd now rode from Heimir's dwelling with much gold, until he came to the palace of King Giuki, whose wife was named Grimhild. They had 3 sons, Gunnar, Hogni, and Guthorm. Gudrun was the name of their daughter. King Giuki entreated Sigurd to stay there, and there he remained a while. All appeared low by the side of Sigurd. One evening the sorceress Grimhild rose and presented a horn to Sigurd, saying, "Joyful for us is thy presence, and we desire that all good may befall thee. Take this horn and drink." He took it and drank, and with that drink forgot both his love and his vows to Brynhild. After that, Grimhild so fascinated him that he was induced to espouse Gudrun, and all pledged their faith to Sigurd, and confirmed it by oaths. Sigurd gave Gudrun to eat of Fafnir's heart, and she became afterwards far more austere than before. Their son was named Sigmund. Grimhild now counselled her son Gunnar to woo Brynhild, and consulted with Sigurd in consequence of this design. Brynhild had vowed to wed that man only who should ride over the blazing fire that was laid around her hall. They found the hall and the fire burning around it. Gunnar rode Goti, and Hogni Holknir. Gunnar turns his horse towards the fire, but it shrinks back. Sigurd said, "Why dost thou shrink back, Gunnar?" Gunnar answers, "My horse will not leap this fire," and prays Sigurd to lend him Grani. "He is at thy service," said Sigurd. Gunnar now rides again towards the fire, but Grani will not go over. They then changed forms. Sigurd rides, having in his hand the sword Gram, and golden spurs on his heels. Grani runs forward to the fire when he feels the spur. There was now a great noise, and it is said, "The fire began to rage and the earth to tremble. High rose the flame to heaven itself. There ventured few chiefs of people through that fire to ride or to leap over. Sigurd Grani with his word urged. The fire was quenched before the prince, the flame allayed before the glory-seeker with the bright saddle that Rock had owned." Brynhild was sitting in a chair as Sigurd entered. She asks who he is, and he calls himself Gunnar, Giuki's son. "And thou art destined to be my wife with thy father's consent. I have ridden through the flickering flame at thy requisition." She said, "I know not well how I shall answer this." Sigurd stood erect on the floor, resting on the hilt of his sword. She rose embarrassed from her seat, like a swan on the waves, having a sword in her hand, a helmet on her head, and wearing a corslet. "Gunnar," said she, "speak not so to me, unless thou art the foremost of men, and then thou must slay him who has sought me, if thou hast so much trust in thyself." Sigurd said, "Remember now thy promise, that thou wouldst go with that man who should ride through the flickering flame. She acknowledged the truth of his words, stood up, and gave him a glad welcome. He tarried there 3 nights, and they prepared one bed. He took the sword Gram and laid it between them. She inquired why he did so. He said that it was enjoined him so to act towards his bride on their marriage, or he would receive his death. He then took from her the ring called Enveranot, and gave her another that had belonged to Fafnir. After this he rode away through the same fire to his companions, when Gunnar and he again changed forms, and they then rode home. Brynhild related this in confidence to her foster father Heimir, and said, "A king named Gunnar has ridden through the flickering flame, and is come to speak with me. But I told him that Sigurd alone might so do, to whom I gave my vow at Hinderfjall, and that he only was the man." Heimir said that what had happened must remain as it was. Brynhild said, "Our daughter Aslaug thou shalt rear up here with thee." Brynhild then went to her father, King Budli, and he with his daughter Brynhild went to King Giuki's palace. A great feasting was afterwards held, when Sigurd remembered all his oaths to Brynhild, and yet kept silence. Brynhild and Gunnar sat at the drinking, and drank wine. One day Brynhild and Gudrun went to the river Rhine, and Brynhild went farther out into the water. Gudrun asked why she did so. Brynhild answered, "Why shall I go on along with thee, in this more than in anything else? I presume that my father was more potent than thine, and my husband has performed more valorous deeds, and ridden through the blazing fire. Thy husband was King Helprek's thrall." Gudrun answered angrily, "Thou shouldst be wiser than to venture to vilify my husband, as it is the talk of all that no one like to him in every respect has ever come into the world, nor does it become thee to vilify him, as he was thy former husband, and slew Fafnir, and rode through the fire, whom thou thoughtest was King Gunnar, and he lay with thee, and took from thee the ring Enveranot, and here mayest thou recognize it." Brynhild then, looking at the ring, recognized it, and turned pale as though she were dead. Brynhild was very taciturn that evening, and Gudrun asked Sigurd why Brynhild was so taciturn. He dissuaded her much from making this inquiry, and said that at all events it would soon be known. On the morrow, when sitting in their apartment, Gudrun said, "Be cheerful, Brynhild. What is it that prevents thy mirth?" Brynhild answered, "Malice drives thee to this, for thou hast a cruel heart." "Judge not so," said Gudrun. Brynhild continued, "Ask about that only which is better for thee to know. That is more befitting women of high degree. It is good, too, for thee to be content, as all goes according to thy wishes." Gudrun said, "It is premature to glory in that. This forebodes something. But what instigates thee against us?" Brynhild answered, "Thou shalt be requited for having espoused Sigurd, for I grudge thee the possession of him." Gudrun said, "We knew not of your secret." Brynhild answered, "We have had no secret, though we have sworn oaths of fidelity, and thou knowest that I have been deceived, and I will avenge it." Gudrun said, "Thou art better married than thou deservest to be, and thy violence must be cooled." "Content should I be," said Brynhild, "didst thou not possess a more renowned husband than I." Gudrun answered, "Thou hast as renowned a husband, for it is doubtful which is the greater king." Brynhild said, "Sigurd overcame Fafnir, and that is worth more than all Gunnar's kingdom, as it is said. Sigurd the serpent slew, and that henceforth shall be by none forgotten, while mankind lives. But thy brother neither dared through the fire to ride, nor over it to leap." Gudrun said, "Grani would not run through the fire under King Gunnar, but Gunnar dared to ride." Brynhild said, "Let us not contend. I bear no goodwill to Grimhild." Gudrun said, "Blame her not, for she is towards thee as to her own daughter." Brynhild said, "She is the cause of all the evil which gnaws me. She presented to Sigurd the pernicious drink, so that he no more remembered me." Gudrun said, "Many an unjust word thou utterest, and this is a great falsehood." Brynhild said, "So enjoy Sigurd as thou hast not deceived me, and made go with thee as I imagine." Gudrun said, "Better shall I enjoy him than thou wilt wish, and no one has said he has had too much good with me at any time." Brynhild said, "Thou sayest ill, and wilt repent of it. Let us cease from angry words, and not indulge in useless prattle. Long have I borne in silence the grief that dwells in my breast. I have also felt regard for thy brother, but let us talk of other things." Gudrun said, "Your imagination looks far forward." Brynhild then lay in bed, and King Gunnar came to talk with her, and begged her to rise and give vent to her sorrow, but she would not listen to him. They then brought Sigurd to visit her, and learn whether her grief might not be alleviated. They called to memory their oaths, and how they had been deceived, and at length Sigurd offered to marry her and put away Gudrun, but she would not hear of it. Sigurd left the apartment, but was so greatly affected by her sorrow that the rings of his corslet burst asunder from his sides, as is said in the Sigurdarkvida. Out went Sigurd from that interview into the Hall of Kings, writhing with anguish, so that began to start the ardent warrior's iron-woven sark off from his sides. Brynhild afterwards instigated Gunnar to murder Sigurd, saying that he had deceived them both and broken his oath. Gunnar consulted with Hogni and revealed to him this conversation. Hogni earnestly strove to dissuade him from such a deed on account of their oaths. Gunnar removed the difficulty, saying, "Let us instigate our brother Guthorm. He is young and of little judgment, and is, moreover, free of all oaths, and so avenge the mortal injury of his having seduced Brynhild." They then took a serpent and the flesh of a wolf, and had them cooked, and gave them to him to eat, and offered him gold in a large realm to do the deed, as is said. The forest fish they roasted, and the wolf's carcass took, while some to Guthorm dealt out gold, gave him Gary's flesh with his drink, and many other things steeped therein. With this food he became so furious that he would instantly perpetrate the deed. On this it is related, as in the Sigurdarkvida, when Gunnar and Brynhild conversed together. The Third Lay of Sigurd Fafnicide. It was of old that Sigurd the young Volsung Giuki sought, after his conflict, received the pledge of friendship from the two brothers, oaths exchanged the bold of deed. A maid then offered him, and treasures many, Gudrun, Giuki's youthful daughter, drank and conversed many days together, Sigurd the young and Giuki's sons, until they went to woo Brynhild, and with them Sigurd the youthful Volsung rode in company, who knew the way. He would have possessed her, if her possess he might. Sigurd the Southern laid a naked sword, a glittering falchion, between them, nor the damsel did he kiss, nor did the Hunnish king to his arm lift her. He the blooming maid to Giuki's son delivered. She to herself of body was of no sin conscious, nor at her death day of any crime that could be a stain, or thought to be. Intervened therein the grisly fates. Alone she sat without at eve of day, began aloud with herself to speak. Sigurd must be mine, I must die, or that blooming youth clasp in my arms. Of the words I have uttered I now repent. He is Gudrun's consort, and I am Gunnar's. The hateful Norns long-suffering have decreed us. Oftentimes she wondered, filled with evil thoughts, o'er ice and icebergs, every eve, when he and Gudrun had to their couch withdrawn, and Sigurd her in the coverings wrapped, the Hunnish king his wife caressed. Devoid I go of spouse and pleasure, I will beguile myself with vengeful thoughts. By those fits of fury she was impelled to murder. Thou, Gunnar, shalt wholly lose my land and myself also. Never shall I be happy, king, with thee. I will return thither from whence I came to my near kindred, my relations. There will I remain, and slumber life away, unless thou Sigurd cause to be slain, and a king become than the other greater. Let the son go together with the father. The young wolf may not longer be fostered. For whom will vengeance be the easier to appease if the son lives? Wroth was Gunnar, and with grief borne down, and his mind revolved, sat the whole day. He knew not well, nor could devise, what were most desirable for him to do, or were most fitting to be done, when he should find himself of the Volsung bereft, and in Sigurd a great loss sustain. Much he thought, and also long, that it did not often happen, that from their royal state women withdrew. Hogni he then to council summoned, in whom he placed the fullest trust. Of all to me, Brynhild, Budli's daughter, is the dearest. She is the chief of women. Rather will I my life lay down, than that fair one's treasures lose. Wilt thou the prince for his wealth circumvent? Good 'tis to command the ore of Rhine, and at ease over riches rule, and in tranquillity happiness enjoy. This alone Hogni for answer gave. It beseems us not so to do, by the sword to break sworn oaths, oaths sworn, and plighted faith. We know not on earth men more fortunate, while we four over the people rule, and the Hun lives, that warlike chief, nor on earth a race more excellent, if we 5 sons long shall foster, and the good progeny can increase. I know full well whence the causes spring. Brynhild's importunity is over great. We will Guthorm, our younger brother, and not overwise, for the deed prepare. He is free from sworn oaths, and plighted faith. Easy it was to instigate the ferocious spirit. In the heart of Sigurd stood his sword. On vengeance bent, the warrior in his chamber hurled his brand after the fierce assassin. To Guthorm flew, dart-like, Graham's gleaming steel from the king's hand. Fell the murderer in 2 parts. Arms and head flew far away, but his feet sparred fell backwards on the place. Sunk in sleep was Gudrun in her bed, void of cares, by Sigurd's side. But she awoke of joys bereft, when in the blood of Frey's friend she swam. So violently struck she her hands together, that the stout of heart rose in his bed. Weep not, Gudrun, so cruelly, my blooming bride. Thy brothers live, and heir I have, alas, too young. He cannot flee from the hostile house. Among themselves they recently have dark and evil counsels devised. Never henceforth, although 7 thou bear, will such a son to the trysting with them ride. Full well I know how this has befallen. Brynhild the sole cause is of all the evil. Me the maiden loved more than any man, but towards Gunnar I sinned not. Affinity I held sacred, and sworn oaths. Thenceforward I was called his consort's friend. The woman gave forth sighs, and the king his life. So violently she struck her hands together, that the beakers on the wall responsive rang, and in the court the geese loudly screamed. Laughed then Brynhild, Budli's daughter, once only, from her whole soul, when in her bed she listened to the loud lament of Giuki's daughter. Then said Gunnar, the hawk-bearing prince, Laugh not thereat, thou barbarous woman, glad on thy couch as if good awaited thee. Why hast thou lost that beauteous colour? Authoress of crime, methinks to death thou art doomed. Well dost thou deserve, above all women, that before thy eyes we should lay Atli low, that thou shouldst see thy brother's blood streaming sore, his gory wounds shouldst have to bind. Then said Brynhild, Budli's daughter, No one provokes thee, Gunnar. Complete is thy work of death. Little does Atli thy hatred fear. His life will outlast thine, and his might be ever greater. Gunnar, I will tell thee, though thou well knowest it, how early we resolved on crimes. I was o'er-young and unrestrained, with wealth endowed, in my brother's house, nor did I desire to marry any man, before ye Giukings rode to our dwelling, 3 on horseback, powerful kings, would that journey had never been. Then myself I promised to the great king, who with gold sat on Grani's back. In eyes he did not you resemble, nor was at all in aspect like. Yet you thought yourselves mighty kings. And to me apart Atli said that he would not have our heritage divided, nor gold nor lands, unless I let myself be married, nor grant me any part of the acquired gold, which he to me a girl had given to possess, and to me a child in moneys counted. Then distracted was my mind thereon, whether I should engage in conflict and death dispense, valiant in arms, for my brother's quarrel. That would then be world-widely known, and to many a one bring heartful anguish. Our reconciliation we let follow. To me it had been more pleasing the treasures to accept, the red gold rings of Sigmund's son. Nor did I another's gold desire. Him alone I loved, none other. Menskugul had not a changing mind. All this will Atli hereafter find, when he shall hear of my funeral rites completed, for never shall the heavy-hearted woman with another's husband pass her life. Then will my wrongs be all avenged. Up rose Gunnar, prince of warriors, and round his consort's neck laid his hands. All drew nigh, yet each one singly, through honest feeling, to dissuade her. She from her neck those about her cast. She let no one stay her from her long journey. He then called Hogni to consultation. I will that all our folk to the hall be summoned, thine with mine. Now 'tis most needful, to see if we can hinder my consort's fatal course, till from our speech a hindrance may come. Then let us leave necessity to rule. To him Hogni answer gave. Let no one hinder her from the long journey, whence may she never born again return. Unblessed she came on her mother's lap, born in the world for ceaseless misery, for many a man's heartfelt sorrow. Downcast he from the meeting turned, to where the lady treasures distributed. She was viewing all she owned, hungry female thralls and chamber women. She put on her golden corslet, no good meditated, ere herself she pierced with the sword's point. On the pillow she turned to the other side, and wounded with the glaive on her last counsel's thought. Now let come those who desire gold, and aught less precious to receive from me. To every one I give a gilded necklace, needlework and coverlets, splendid weeds. All were silent, thought on what to do, and all together answer gave. Too many are there dead. We will yet live, still be hungry hall servants, to do what fitting is. At length, after reflection, the lady linen-clad, young in years, words in answer uttered. I desire that none, dead to entreaty, should by force, for our sake, lose their life. Yet o'er your bones will burn fewer ornaments, many's good meal, when ye go hence me to seek. Gunnar, sit down, I will tell to thee, that of life now hopeless is thy bride consort. Thy vessel will not be always afloat, though I shall have my life resigned. With Gudrun thou wilt be reconciled, sooner than thou thinkest. That wise woman has by the king sad memorials, after her consort's death. There is born a maid, which her mother rears. Brighter far than the clear day, than the sun's beam, will Svanhild be. Gudrun thou wilt give to an illustrious one, a warrior, the bane of many men. Not to her wish will she be married. Atli will come her to espouse, Budli's son, my brother. Much have I in memory how I was treated, when ye me so cruelly had deceived. Robbed I was of happiness, while my life lasted. Thou wilt desire Oddrun to possess, but Atli will permit it not. In secret you will each other meet. She will love thee, as I had done, if us a better fate had been allotted. Thee will Atli barbarously treat, in the narrow serpent den wilt thou be cast. It will too come to pass, not long after, that Atli will his soul resign, his prosperity, and cease to live. For Gudrun in her vengeance him in his bed will slay, through bitterness of spirit, with the sword's sharp edge. More seemly would appear our sister Gudrun, had she in death her first consort followed, had but good counsel been to her given, or she a soul possessed resembling mine. Faintly I now speak, but for our sake she will not lose her life. She will be borne on towering billows to King Jonakr's paternal soil. Doubts will be in the resolves of Jonakr's sons. She will Svanhild send from the land, her daughter and Sigurd's. Her will destroy Becky's counsel, for Jormunrek for evil lives. Then will have passed away all Sigurd's race, and Gudrun's tears will be the more. One prayer I have to thee yet to make. In this world 'twill be my last request. Let in the plain be raised a pile so spacious that for us all like room may be, for those who shall have died with Sigurd. Bedeck the pile about with shields and hangings, a variegated corpse cloth, and multitude of slain. Let them burn the Hun on the one side of me. Let them with the Hun burn on the other side my household slaves, with collars splendid, 2 at our heads, and 2 hawks. Then will all be equally distributed. Let also lie between us both the sword with rings adorned, the keen-edged iron, so again be placed, as when we both one couch ascended, and were then called by the name of consorts. Then will not clang against his heel the hall's bright gates, with splendid ring, if my train him hence shall follow. Then will our procession appear not mean. For him will follow 5 female thralls, 8 male slaves of gentle birth, fostered with me, and with my patrimony, which to his daughter Budli gave. Much I have said, and more would I say, if the sword would grant me power of speech. My voice fails, my wounds swell, truth only I have uttered, so I will cease. The Fragments of the Lay of Brynhild. Gunnar. Why art thou, Brynhild, Budli's daughter, absorbed in evil and murderous thoughts? What injury has Sigurd done thee, that thou the hero wilt of life bereave? Brynhild. Sigurd to me oaths has sworn, all falsehoods. He at a time deceived me, when he should have been of all oaths most observant. Hogni. Thee, Brynhild, has in anger instigated evil to perpetrate, harm to execute. She grudges Gudrun her happy marriage, and thee possession of herself. Some a wolf roasted, some a snake cut up, some to Guthorm served the wolf, before they might, eager for crime, on the mighty men lay their hands. Without stood Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, and these words first of all uttered. Where is now Sigurd, lord of warriors, seeing that my kinsmen foremost ride? Hogni alone to her answer gave. Asunder have we Sigurd hewed with our swords, his grey steed bends o'er the dead chief. Then said Brynhild, Budli's daughter, Well shall ye now enjoy arms and lands. Sigurd would alone over all have ruled, had he a little longer life retained. Unseemly it had been that he should so have ruled over Giuki's heritage and the Goth's people, when he 5 sons, for the fall of hosts, eager for warfare, had begotten. Then laughed Brynhild. The whole burg resounded, once only from her whole heart. Well shall ye enjoy lands and subjects, now the daring king ye have caused to fall. Then said Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, Much thou speakest, things most atrocious. May fiends have Gunnar, Sigurd's murderer. Soul's malevolent vengeance awaits. Sigurd had fallen south of Rhine. Loud from a tree a raven screamed. With your blood will Atli his sword's edges redden. The oaths ye have sworn your slaughter shall dissolve. Evening was advanced, much was drunken. Then did pleasant talk of all kinds pass. All sank in sleep, when to rest they went. Gunnar alone was wakeful longer than all. He began his foot to move, and much with himself to speak. The warlike chief in his mind pondered what during the conflict the raven and the eagle were ever saying as they rode home. Brynhild awoke, Budli's daughter, daughter of Skjoldungs, a little Erde. Urge me or stay me, the mischief is perpetrated, my sorrow to pour forth or to suppress it. All were silent at these words. Few understood the lady's conduct, that weeping she should begin to speak of what she laughing had desired. In my dream, Gunnar, all seemed so horrid. In the chamber all was dead, my bed was cold, and thou, king, wast riding of joy bereft, with fetters loaded to a hostile host. So we all, race of Niflungs, be of power deprived, perjurers as ye are. Ill, Gunnar, didst thou remember, when blood ye in your footsteps both let flow. Now hast thou him ill for all that requited, because he would prove himself foremost. Then was it proved, when the hero had ridden to see me, to woo me, how the warlike chief whilom held sacred his oath towards the youthful prince, laid his sword, with gold adorned, the illustrious king, between us both. Outward its edges were with fire wrought, but with venom drops tempered within. From this lay, in which the death of Sigurd is related, it appears that he was slain without doors, while some relate that he was slain sleeping in his bed. But the Germans say he was slain out in the forest, and it is told in the Gudrun Arkvida Hinforna that Sigurd and the sons of Giuki had ridden to the public assembly, Thing, when he was slain. But it is said by all, without exception, that they broke faith with him, and attacked him while lying down and unprepared. The First Lay of Gudrun. Gudrun sat over Sigurd dead. She wept, not as other women, although ready to burst with sorrow. Both men and women came to console her, but that was not easy. It is said by some that Gudrun had eaten of Fafnir's heart, and therefore understood the talk of birds. This is also sung of Gudrun. Of old it was that Gudrun prepared to die, when she, sorrowing over Sigurd, sat. No sigh she uttered, nor with her hands beat, nor wailed, as other women. Jarls came forward of great sagacity from her sad state of mind to divert her. Gudrun could not shed a tear, such was her affliction. Ready she was to burst. Sat there noble wives of Jarls, adorned with gold, before Gudrun. Each of them told her sorrows, the bitterest she had known. Then said Gjaflog, Giuki's sister, I know myself to be on earth most joyless. Of 5 consorts I the loss have suffered, of 2 daughters, sisters 3, and brothers 8, I alone live. Gudrun could not shed a tear, such was her affliction for her dead consort, and her soul's anguish for the king's fall. Then said Herborg, Huneland's queen, I a more cruel grief have to recount. My 7 sons, in the south land, my spouse the 8th, in conflict fell. My father and my mother, my brothers 4, on the sea the wind deluded. The waves struck on the ship's timbers. Their last honours 'twas mine to pay. 'Twas mine to see them tombed. Their funeral rites to prepare was mine. All this I underwent in 1/2 year, and to me no one consolation offered. Then I became a captive, taken in war, at the close of the same 1/2 year. Then had I to adorn and tie the shoes of the Hersir's wife each morn. From jealousy she threatened me, and with hard blows drove me. Nowhere master found I a better, but mistress nowhere a worse. Gudrun could not shed a tear, such was her affliction for her dead consort, and her soul's anguish for the king's fall. Then said Gulrond, Giuki's daughter, "Little canst thou, my fosterer, wise as thou art, with a young wife fittingly talk. The king's body she forbade to be longer hidden." She snatched the sheet from Sigurd's corpse, and turned his cheek towards his wife's knees. "Behold thy loved one, lay thy mouth to his lip, as if thou wouldst embrace the living prince." Gudrun upon him cast one look. She saw the prince's locks dripping with blood, the chief's sparkling eyes closed in death, his kingly breast cleft by the sword. Then sank down Gudrun back on her pillow. Her headgear was loosed, her cheeks grew red, and a flood of tears fell to her knees. Then wept Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, so that the tears spontaneously flowed, and at the same time screamed the geese in the court, the noble birds which the lady owned. Then spake Gulrond, Giuki's daughter, "Your loves, I know, were the most ardent among living beings upon earth. Thou hadst delight nowhere, sister mine, save with Sigurd." Then said Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, "Such was my Sigurd among Giuki's sons, as is the garlic out from the grass which grows, or a bright stone on a thread drawn, a precious gem on kings. I also seemed to the prince's warriors higher than any of Herian's disser. Now I am as little as the leaf oft is in the storm winds, after the chieftain's death. Sitting I miss, and in my bed my dearest friend. Giuki's sons have caused my affliction, and their sisters' tears of anguish. So ye desolate the people's land, as ye have kept your sworn oaths. Gunnar, thou wilt not the gold enjoy. Those rings will be thy bane, for the oaths thou to Sigurd gavest. Oft in the mansion was the greater mirth, when my Sigurd granny saddled, and Brynhild they went to woo, that which accursed in an evil hour. Then said Brynhild, Budli's daughter, May the hag lack spouse and children, who thee, Gudrun, has caused to weep, and this morning given thee runes of speech. Then said Gulrond, Giuki's daughter, Cease, thou loathed of all, from those words. The evil destiny of princes thou hast ever been. Thee every billow drives of an evil nature. Thou sore affliction of 7 kings, the greatest bane of friendship among women. Then said Brynhild, Budli's daughter, Atli my brother, Budli's offspring, is the sole cause of all the evil. When in the hall of the Hunnish folk with the king we beheld the fire of the serpent's bed. Of that journey I have paid the penalty, that sight I have ever rued. She by a column stood, the wood violently clasped. From the eyes of Brynhild, Budli's daughter, fire gleamed forth. Venom she snorted when she beheld the wounds of Sigurd. Gudrun then went away to the forest and deserts, and travelled to Denmark, where she stayed 7 half years with Thora, Hakon's daughter. Brynhild would not outlive Sigurd. She caused her 8 thralls and 5 female slaves to be killed, and then slew herself with a sword, as it is related in the Sigurd Arkvida in Skema, the short lay of Sigurd.
Brynhild's Hel-ride. After Brynhild's death 2 piles were made, one for Sigurd, who was the first burnt, but Brynhild was burnt afterwards, and she was in a chariot, which was hung with precious tapestry, so that it was said that Brynhild drove in a chariot on the way to Hel, and passed through a place in which a giantess dwelt. The giantess said, "Thou shalt not pass through my stone-supported dwelling-place. Better had it beseemed thee to work broidery than to seek after another's husband. Why dost thou, vagrant woman, from Valand, my dwelling visit? Thou hast, golden dame, if thou desirest to know, gentle one, from thy hands washed human blood." Brynhild. Upbraid me not, woman of the rock, although I have in warfare been. Of us, I trow, I shall the better seem, wherever men our conditions know. Giantess. Thou, Brynhild, Budli's daughter, wast in evil hour born in the world. Thou hast been the bane of Giuki's children, and their happy house subverted. Brynhild. For my chariot I will truly tell thee, thou witless crone, if thou desirest to know, how Giuki's heirs may be both lovelorn and perjured. The bold-hearted king caused the garbs of us 8 sisters under an oak to be born. 12 years old was I, if thou desirest to know, when to the youthful king's oaths I gave. By all in Hlimnadir was I called Hild with the helm, by all who knew me. Then caused I next, in the Gothic realm, the old Hjálmgunnar to Hel to journey. I gave victory to the youthful brother of Oda, whereat Odin became hostile to me. He with shields encompassed me, red and white, in Skatalund. Their surfaces enclosed me. Him he ordained to sleep my break, who in no place could be made to fear. He made around my hull, towards the south, towering burn the destroyer of all wood. Then bade that man only over it to ride, who me the gold should bring, that under Fafnir lay. On Grani rode the chief, the gold disperser, to where my foster-father ruled o'er the dwellings. He alone seemed there to all superior, the Danish warrior of the court. We slept and were content in the same bed, as if he had my born brother been. Neither of us might on the other for 8 nights lay a hand. Reproached me Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, that I had slept in Sigurd arms. Then I was made aware of what I fain would not, that they had deceived me when a mate I took. To calamities all too lasting men and women ever will be while living born. We two shall now, Sigurd and I, pass our life together. Think thou of a giant kind.
The slaughter of the Niflungs. Gunnar and Högni then took all the gold, Fafnir's heritage. Dissension prevailed afterwards between the Giukungs and Atli. He charged them with being the cause of Brynhild's death. By way of reconciliation, it was agreed that they should give him Gudrun in marriage, to whom they administered an oblivious potion before she would consent to espouse Atli. Atli had 2 sons, Erp and Etil, but Swanhild was the daughter of Sigurd and Gudrun. King Atli invited Gunnar and Högni to his residence, and sent to them Vingi or Knefrod. Gudrun was aware of treachery, and sent them word in runes not to come, and to Högni, as a token, she sent the ring Andvaranoit, in which she had tied some wolf's hair. Gunnar had sought the hand of Oddrun, Atli's sister, but did not obtain it. He then married Gloimvor, and Högni took Kostbera to wife. Their sons were Solar, Snævar, and Giuki. When the Giukungs came to Atli, Gudrun besought his sons to intercede for their lives, but they would not. The heart of Högni was cut out, and Gunnar was cast into a pen of serpents. He struck his harp and lulled the serpents, but an adder stung him to the liver.
The Second Lay of Gudrun. King Theodric was with Atli, and had there lost the greater number of his men. Theodric and Gudrun mutually bewailed their afflictions. She related to him and said, "A maid above all maids I was, my mother reared me bright in her bower, my brothers I much loved, until me Giuki, with gold adorned, to Sigurd gave." Such was Sigurd above Giuki's sons, as the green leek is, springing from the grass, or the high-limbed hart above the savage beasts, or gleed-red gold above grey silver. Until my brothers the possession grudged me of a consort to all superior. They could not sleep, nor on affairs deliberate, before day Sigurd had caused to die. Grani to the assembly ran, his tramp was to be heard. But Sigurd then himself came not. All the saddle beasts were splashed with blood, and with sweating faint from the murderers. Weeping I went to talk to Grani, with humid cheeks, I prayed the steed to tell. Then Grani shuddered, in the grass bowed down his head. The steed knew that his master was no more. Long I wondered, long was my mind distracted, ere of the people's guardian I inquired for my king. Gunnar hung his head, but Hogni told me of Sigurd's cruel death. Beyond the river slaughtered lies Guttorm's murderer, and to the wolves given. Yonder behold Sigurd, toward the south, where thou wilt hear the ravens croak, the eagles scream, in their feast exulting, the wolves howling round thy consort. Why wilt thou, Hogni, to a joyless being such miseries recount? May thy heart by ravens be torn and scattered over the wide world, rather than thou shouldst walk with men. Hogni answered, for once cast down from his cheerful mood by intense trouble. Gudrun, thou wouldst have greater cause to weep if the ravens should tear my heart. Alone I turned from that interview to the wolves' scattered leavings. No sigh I uttered, nor with my hands beat, nor wailed as other women when I heartbroken sat by Sigurd. Night seemed to me of blackest darkness, when I sorrowing sat by Sigurd. Better by far seemed it to me had the wolves taken my life, or I had been burnt as a birchen tree. From the fell I journeyed 5 long days and nights, until the lofty hall of Hof I recognized. 7 half years I with Thora stayed, Hakon's daughter, in Denmark. She for my solace wrought in gold southern halls, and Danish wands. We had in pictures the game of warriors, and in handiworks a prince's nobles. Red shields, Hunnish heroes, a sworded host, a helmed host, a prince's following. Sigmund's ships from the land sailing, with gilded heads and carved prows. We on our canvas wrought how Siguard and Siggeir both contended southward in Fien. When Grimhild, the Gothic woman, heard how greatly I was afflicted, she cast aside her needlework, and her sons called often earnestly, that she might know who for her son would their sister compensate, or for her consort slain the blood fine pay. Gunnar was ready gold to offer for the injuries to atone, and Hogni also. She then inquired who would go the steeds to saddle, the chariot to drive, on horseback ride, the hawk let fly, arrows shoot from the yew bow. Valdar and the Danes with Jarisleif, Amod the third with Jariskar, then entered, to princes like. Red mantles had the Langbard's men, corslets ornamented, towering helms. Girded they were with falchions, brown were their locks. For me each one would choose precious gifts, and to my heart would speak if for my many woes they might gain my confidence, and I would in them trust. Grimhild to me brought a potion to drink cold and bitter, that I my injuries might forget. It was mingled with Urd's power, with cold sea water, and with sun's blood. In that horn were characters of every kind graven and red-hued. Nor could I comprehend them. The long lingfish of the Hadding's land, an uncut ear of corn, the wild beast's entrance. In that potion were many ills together, a herb from every wood, and the acorn, the firestead's dew, entrails of offerings, swine's liver seethed, for that deadened strife. And then I forgot when I had taken it all the king's words in the hall spoken. There to my feet 3 kings came, before she herself sought to speak with me. Gudrun, I will give thee gold to possess, of all the riches much of thy dead father, rings of red gold, Hlodver's halls, all the hangings left by the fallen king. Hunnish maids, those who weave tapestry, and in bright gold work, so that it may delight thee. Over Budli's wealth thou alone shalt rule, adorned with gold, and given to Atli. I will not have any man, nor Brynhild's brother marry. It beseems me not with Budli's son to increase a race, or life enjoy. Take care not to pay the chiefs with hate, for 'tis we who have been the aggressors. So shouldst thou act as if yet lived Sigurd and Sigmund, if sons thou bearest. Grimhild, I cannot in mirth indulge, nor, for my hero's sake, cherish a hope, since the bloodthirsty wolf and raven have together cruelly drunk my Sigurd's heart's blood. Him, of all, I have found to be a king of noblest race and in much most excellent. Him shalt thou have until age lays thee low, or mateless be, if him thou wilt not take. Cease to offer that cup of ill so pertinaciously, that race to me. He will Gunnar's destruction perpetrate, and I will cut out Hogni's heart. I will not cease until the exulting strife exciter's life I shall have taken. Weeping Grimhild caught the words by which to her sons Gudrun foreboded evil, and to her kindred dire misfortunes. Lands I will also give thee, people and followers, Vinbjorg and Valbjorg, if thou wilt accept them, for life possess them, and be happy, daughter. Him then I will choose among the kings, and from my relatives reluctantly receive him. Never will he be to me a welcome consort, nor my brother's bale a protection to our sons. Forthwith on horseback was each warrior to be seen, but the Walish women were in chariots placed. For 7 days o'er a cold land we rode, but the second 7 we beat the waves, and the third 7 we reached dry land. There the gatewards of the lofty burg the latticed entrance opened, ere the court we entered. Atli waked me, but I seemed to be full of evil thoughts, for my kinsman's death. So me just now have the Norns waked, a grateful interpretation I fain would have. Methought that thou, Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, with a treacherous sword didst pierce me through. Fire it forebodes when one of iron dreams, arrogance and pleasure, a woman's anger. Against evil I will go burn thee, cure and medicate thee, although to me thou art hateful. Seemed to me here in the garden that young shoots had fallen, which I wished to let grow. Torn up with their roots, reddened with blood, to table they were brought and offered me to eat. Seemed to me that hawks flew from my hand, lacking their quarry, to the house of woes. Seemed to me I ate their hearts with honey swollen with blood, with sorrowing mind. Seemed to me from my hand whelps I let slip, lacking cause of joy, both of them howled. Seemed to me their bodies became dead carcasses, of the carrion I was compelled to eat. There will be warriors round thy couch converse, and of thy white-locked ones take off the head. Death-doomed they are within a few nights, a little ere day. Thy court will eat of them. Lie down I would not, nor sleep after, obstinate in my fate. That I will execute. The Third Lay of Gudrun. Atli had a serving woman named Herkia, who had been his concubine. She informed Atli that she had seen Theodric and Gudrun together, whereat Atli was much afflicted. Then Gudrun said, "What ails thee ever, Atli, Budli's son? Hast thou sorrow in thy heart? Why never laughest thou? To thy jarls it would seem more desirable that thou with men wouldst talk, and on me wouldst look." Atli. It grieves me, Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, that in my place here Herkia has said that thou and Theodric have under one covering slept, and wantonly been in the linen wrapped. Gudrun. For all this charge I will give my oaths by the white sacred stone, that with me and Theodric nothing has passed, which to man and wife only belongs, save that I embraced the prince of armies, the honored king, a single time. Other were our cogitations, when sorrowful we two sat to converse. Hither came Theodric with 30 warriors. Now there lives not one of those 30 men. Surround me with thy brothers and with mailed warriors. Surround me with all thy noblest kinsmen. Send to Saxi the Southmen's prince. He can hallow the boiling cauldron. 700 men entered the hall, ere in the cauldron the queen dipped her hand. Now Gunnar comes not, nor I call Hogni. I shall not see again my loved brothers. With his sword would Hogni such wrong avenge. Now I must myself purify from crime. She to the bottom plunged her snow-white hand, and up she drew the precious stones. See now, ye men, I am proved guiltless in holy wise, boil the vessel as it may. Laughed then Atli's heart within his breast, when he unscathed beheld the hand of Gudrun. Now must Herkia to the cauldron go, she who Gudrun had hoped to injure. No one has misery seen who saw not that, how the hand there of Herkia was burnt. They then the woman led to a foul slough. So were Gudrun's wrongs avenged. Oddrun's Lament. There was a king named Heidrek, who had a daughter named Borgny. Her lover was named Vilmund. She could not give birth to a child until Oddrun, Atli's sister, came. She had been the beloved of Gunnar, Giuki's son. Of this story it is here sung. I have heard tell, in ancient stories, how a damsel came to the eastern land. No one was able, on the face of earth, help to afford to Heidrek's daughter. When Oddrun, Atli's sister, heard that the damsel had great pains, from the stall she led her well-bridled steed, and on the swart one the saddle laid. She the horse made run on the smooth, dusty way, until she came to where a high hall stood. She the saddle snatched from the hungry steed, and in she went along the court, and these words first of all uttered. What is most noteworthy in this country, or what most desirable in the Hunnish land? Borgny. Here lies Borgny with pains overwhelmed, thy friend Oddrun. See if thou canst help her. Oddrun. What chieftain has on thee brought this dishonor? Why so acute are Borgny's pains? Borgny. Vilmund is named the falcon-bearer's friend. He the damsel wrapped in a warm coverlet 5 whole winters, so that from her father she was hidden. They, I ween, spoke not more than this. Kindly she went to sit at the damsel's knee. Vehemently sang Oddrun, fervently sang Oddrun's songs of power over Borgny. A girl and boy might then tread the mould way, gentle babes, born of Hogni's bane. Then began to speak the death-sick damsel, who before had no word uttered. So may thee help the benignant Genii, Frigg and Freya, and other gods besides, as thou hast from me peril removed. I was not inclined to give thee help, because thou never wast of succor worthy. I vowed and have performed what I then said, when the princes the heritage divided, that I would ever help afford. Borgny. Mad art thou, Oddrun, and hast lost thy wits, when in hostile spirit most of thy words thou utterest, for I have been thy companion upon the earth, as if from brothers we both were born. Oddrun. I remember yet what thou one evening saidst, when I for Gunnar a competition made. Such a case, saidst thou, would not thenceforth happen to any maiden save to me alone. Then sat down the sorrowing lady to tell her woes from her great grief. I was nurtured in the kingly hall, I was the joy of many in the council of men. Life I enjoyed, and my father's wealth, 5 winters only, while my father lived. These last words the noble-hearted king strove to utter, ere he departed hence. He bade me be endowed with ruddy gold, and in the south be given to Grimhild's son. He said no maiden could more excellent in the world be born, if fate willed it not otherwise. Brynhild in her bower was occupied in broidery, she had people and lands around her. Earth slumbered, and the heavens above, when Fafnir's bane her Burke first saw. Then was conflict waged with the Walish sword, and the burg taken which Brynhild owned. It was not long, which was not surprising, ere she discovered all those frauds. These she caused cruelly to be avenged, so that we all have great afflictions. Known it will be through every land of men, that she caused herself to die with Sigurd. But I for Gunnar, rings dispenser, love conceived, such as Brynhild should. But he Brynhild bade a helmet take, said she a Valkyria should become. They forthwith offered ruddy rings to my brother, and indemnity not shall. He besides offered for me 15 vills and the load of Grani's sides, if he would accept them. But Atli said he never would a marriage gift receive from Giuki's son. Still we could not our loves withstand, but I my head must lay upon the ring-breaker. Many things, said my relations, declared they had surprised us both together, but Atli said that I would not crime commit, nor scandal perpetrate. But such should no one for another ever deny, when love has part. Atli sent his emissaries about to Mirkwood, that he might prove me, and they came to where they ought not to have come, to where we had one couch prepared. To the men we offered red gold rings, that they it might not to Atli tell. But they forthwith hastened home, and it quickly to Atli told. But they from Gudrun carefully concealed it, yet rather by half she should have known it. A sound was heard of gold-shod hoofs, when into the court rode Giuki's heirs. Of Hogni they the heart cut out, and into a serpent pen the other cast. I had gone yet once again to Geirmund, to prepare a banquet. The brave king began the harp to sound, for the prince of noble race hoped that I to his aid might come. I it heard from Hlesi, how of trouble there the harp strings sang. I my thralls bade all be ready, I the prince's life would save. The vessel we let float past the forest, until I saw all Atli's courts. Then came Atli's miserable mother crawling forth. May she perish! She Gunnar pierced to the heart, so that the hero I could not save. Oftentimes I wonder, woman gold adorned, how I after can life retain, for I seemed the formidable sword dispenser as myself to love. Thou sitt'st and listenest, while I recount to thee many an evil fate, my own and theirs. Each one lives as he best may. Now is ended Oddrun's lament.
The Lay of Atli. Gudrun, Giuki's daughter, avenged her brothers, as is well known. She first killed Atli's sons, and afterwards Atli himself, and burnt the palace with all the household. On these events was this lay composed. Atli sent riding a messenger to Gunnar, a crafty man, Knefrud was his name. To Giuki's courts he came, and to Gunnar's hall, to the seats of state, and the glad potation. There drank the courtiers wine in their Valhall, but the guileful ones silence kept, the Huns' wrath they feared. Then said Knefrud, with chilling voice, the southern warrior on a high bench sat. Atli has sent me hither, on his errand riding on a bit-griping steed, through the unknown Mirkwood, to pray you, Gunnar, that to his bench ye come, with helms of state, Atli's home to visit. Shields ye there can choose, and smooth-shaven spears, gold-red helms, and of Huns a multitude, silver-gilt saddle-cloths, sarks gory red, the darts obstruction, and bit-griping steeds. The plain he will also give you, the broad Gnita hide, whistling javelins and gilded prows, vast treasures, and Danp's towns, with that famed forest which men the Mirkwood call. Gunnar his head then turned, and to Hogni said, What counsellest thou, bold warrior, now such like we hear? Of no gold I knew on Gnita's heath, to which we possess not other equal. 7 halls have we filled with swords, of each of which the hilt is gold. My horse I know the best, and my sword the keenest. My bow adorns my seat, my corselets are of gold, my helm and shield the brightest, brought from the hall of Kjar. Mine alone are better than all the Hunnish ones. What thinkest thou the woman means, by sending us a ring in a wolf's clothing wrapped? I think that she caution enjoins. Wolf's hair I found twined in the red gold ring. Wolfish is the way we on our errand ride. No sons persuaded Gunnar, nor other kinsmen, interpreters, nor counsellors, nor those who potent were. Then spake Gunnar, as beseemed a king, great in his mead hall, from his large soul. Rise up now, Fjornir, let along the benches pass the golden cups of heroes from the attendants' hands. The wolf shall rule the Niflungs' heritage, O bearded sages. If Gunnar perish, black-coated bears earth's fruit tear with their teeth, to the dog's delight, if Gunnar come not back. Honoured men weeping led the land's ruler from the Huns' court. Then said Hogni's youthful heir, Go now, prudent and prosperous, whither your wishes lead. The warriors made their bit-griping steeds over the mountains fly, through the unknown Mirkwood. The whole Hunnish forest trembled wherever the warriors rode, over the shrubless, all-green plains they sped. Atli's land they saw, and the high watchtowers. Becky's people stood on the lofty fortress. The south people's hall was rounded with benches set, with well-bound bucklers, and wide shields, the javelin's obstruction. There Atli drank wine in his Valhall. His guards sat without, Gunnar and his men to watch, lest they there should come with yelling dart to excite their prince to conflict. Their sister forthwith saw, when the hall they had entered, her brothers both. Beer had she little drunken. Betrayed art thou now, Gunnar, though strong. How wilt thou contend with the Hun's deadly wiles? Go quickly from this hall. Better hadst thou, Gunnar, in corslet come, than with helm of state, to see the home of Atli. Thou in the saddle wouldst have sat whole sun-bright days, and o'er the pallid dead let the Norns weep, the Hunnish shield-maids misery suffer. But Atli himself thou shouldst into the serpent pen have cast. But now the serpent pen is for you two reserved. Sister, 'tis now too late the Niflungs to assemble, long 'tis to seek the aid of men, of valiant heroes, over the rugged fells of Rhine. Then the Burgundians' friends Gunnar seized, in fetters lay, and in fast bound. Hogni hewed down 7 with a keen sword, but the 8th he thrust into the raging fire. So should a valiant man defend himself from foes. Hogni had Gunnar's hands protected. The bold chief they asked if the Goth's lord would with gold his life redeem. Hogni's heart in my hand shall lie, cut bloody from the breast of the valiant chief, the king's son, with a dull-edged knife. They the heart cut out from Hjalli's breast, on a dish bleeding laid it, and it to Gunnar bare. Then said Gunnar, lord of men, here have I the heart of the timid Hjalli, unlike the heart of the bold Hogni, for much it trembles as in the dish it lies. It trembled more by half, while in his breast it lay. Hogni laughed, when to his heart they cut the living crest-crasher. No lament uttered he. All bleeding on a dish they laid it, and it to Gunnar bare. Calmly said Gunnar, the warrior Niflung, here have I the heart of the bold Hogni, unlike the heart of the timid Hjalli, for it little trembles, as in the dish it lies. It trembled less, while in his breast it lay. So far shalt thou, Atli, be from the eyes of men, as thou wilt from the treasures be. In my power alone is all the hidden Niflung's gold, now that Hogni lives not. Ever was I wavering, while we both lived. Now am I so no longer, as I alone survive. Rhine shall possess men's baleful metal, the mighty stream, the as-known Niflung's heritage. In the rolling water the choice rings shall glitter, rather than on the hand of the Hun's children shine. Drive your wheel chariots, the captive is now in bonds. Atli the mighty, their sister's husband, rode with resounding steeds, with strife-thorns surrounded. Gudrun perceived the hero's peril. She from tears refrained on entering the hall of tumult. So be it with thee, Atli, as towards Gunnar thou hast held the oft-sworn oaths formerly taken, by the southward verging sun, and by Sigti's hill, the secluded bed of rest, and by Ullr's ring. Yet thence the more did the bit-shaker, the treasure's guardian, the warrior chief, drag to death. The living prince then did a host of men into a pen cast down, which was within with serpents overcrawled. But Gunnar there alone a harp in wrathful mood with his hands struck, the strings resounded. So should a daring chief, a ring dispenser, gold from men withhold. Atli turned his brass-shod steed, his home to revisit back from the murder. Din was in the court with horses thronged, men's weapon song, from the heath they were come. Out then went Gudrun, Atli to meet, with a golden cup to do her duty to the king. Thou canst, O king, joyful in thy hall receive from Gudrun the arms of the departed. The drinking cups of Atli groaned with heavy wine, when in the hall together the Huns were counted. Long-bearded, bold, the warriors entered. Hastened the bright-faced dame to bear their potions to them, the wondrous lady to the chiefs, and reluctantly to the pallid Atli the festal dainties offered, and uttered words of hate. Thou, sword's dispenser, hast thy 2 sons' hearts, slaughter gory, with honey eaten. I resolved that thou, bold chief, shouldst the human dish eat at thy feasting, and to the place of honour send it. Henceforth thou wilt not to thy knees call Erp and Eitil, joyous with beer the 2. Thou wilt not henceforth see them from thy middle seat gold dispersing, javelins shafting, manes clipping, or horses urging. Uproar was on the benches, portentous the cry of men, noise beneath the costly hangings. The children of the Huns wept, all wept, save Gudrun who never wept, or for her bare fierce brothers, or her dear sons, young, simple, whom she had borne to Atli. Gold scattered the swan-fair dame, with ruddy rings the household gifted. Fate she let ripen, but the bright gold flow. The woman spared not the treasure houses. Atli, incautious, had himself drunk weary. Weapon he had none, nor was against Gudrun guarded. Oft had their sport been better, when they lovingly embraced each other before the nobles. With the sword's point she gave the bed of blood to drink, with death-bent hand, and the dogs loosed out at the hall door drove them, and the lady wakened the household with burning brand. That vengeance she for her brothers took. To fire she then gave all that were therein, and from her brothers' murder were from the dark den returned. The old structures fell, the treasure houses smoked, the Budlung's dwelling. Burnt too were the shield maids within, their lives cut short, in the raging fire they sank. Of this enough is said. No such woman will henceforth arms again bear, to avenge her brothers. That bright woman had to 3 kings of men the death doom borne, before she died. Yet more clearly is this told in Atlamalum inum Groenlenskum, the Groenland Lay of Atli. The death of Atli. Atli has been identified as Attila, called in history the Scourge of God, a king of the Huns who twice defeated the Romans under Theodosius and plundered the Eternal City itself. He was guilty of many excesses and is reported to have died of a hemorrhage on the day following his marriage with Ildico, 453. In the story of Siegfried and Brynhild, however, he is represented as having married Gudrun, daughter of Grimhild and King Giuki, who, it will be recalled by readers of the other volumes of this series, beguiled Siegfried by means of a magic potion into marriage with her. Her feelings revolted against an alliance with Atli, but she accepted him for a husband, in order thereby to obtain the power to gratify her vengeance against Hogni, Hagen, who had assassinated Siegfried. The Groenland Lay of Atli. Of those misdeeds men have heard tell, when warriors of old a compact made, which by pledges they confirmed, a secret consultation held. Terrible it was to them after, and to Giuki's sons likewise, who were betrayed. The warriors' fate ripened, they were death-doomed. Ill-advised was Atli, though he possessed sagacity. He felled a mighty column, strove hardly against himself, with speed he messengers dispatched, that his wife's brothers should come quickly. Wise was the house-dame, prudently she thought, the words in order she had heard, that in secret they had said. The sage lady was at a loss, fain would she help them. They over the sea must sail, but she herself could not go. Runes she graved, Vingi them falsified, before he gave them from him. Of ill he was the bearer. Then departed Atli's messengers, through the branched firth, for where the bold warriors dwelt. They with beer were cheered, and fires they kindled, naught thought they of guile when they were come. They the gifts accepted, which the prince sent them, on a column hung them, and of no evil thought. Then came Kostbera, she was Hogni's wife, a woman greatly cautious, and them both greeted. Glad was also Glaumvor, Gunnar's consort, the prudent dame her duty forgot not, she to the guests' need attended. Hogni they home invited, if he would be pleased to go. Treachery was manifest, had they but reflected. Gunnar then promised, if only Hogni would, but Hogni refused what the other proposed. The noble dames bore mead, of many things there was abundance, many horns passed round, until it seemed they had full drunken. The household prepared their couches, as to them seemed best. Cunning was Kostbera, she could runes interpret, she the letters read by the bright fire, her tongue she had to guard between both her gums, so perverted were they, it was difficult to understand them. To their bed they went, she and Hogni. The gentle lady dreamed, and concealed it not, to the prince wisely said it as soon as she awoke. From home thou art going, Hogni, give ear to counsel, few are fully prudent, go another time. I have the runes interpreted which thy sister graved. That fair dame has not this time invited thee. At one thing I wonder most, I cannot even conceive why so wise a woman so confusedly should grave, for it is so set down as if it intimated death to you both if you should straightway come. Either she has left out a letter, or others are the cause. They are, said Hogni, all suspicious. I have no knowledge of them, nor will I into it inquire, unless we have to make requital. The king will gift us with gleed red gold. I never fear, though we may hear of terror. Tottering ye will go, if thitherward ye tend. No kind entertainment there will ye at this time find. Hogni, I have dreamed, I will not conceal it. In an evil hour ye will go, or so at least I fear. Methought thy coverlet was with fire consumed, that the towering flame rushed through my dwelling. Hogni, here lie linen cloths, which thou hadst little noticed. These will quickly burn, where thou the coverlet sawest. Kostbera, methought a bear came in and broke down the columns, and so his talons shook, that we were terror-stricken. By his mouth held many of us, so that we were helpless. There, too, was a din far from little. Hogni, a tempest there will be furious and sudden. The white bear thou sawest will be a storm from the east. Kostbera, methought an eagle flew herein, all through the house, that will largely concern us. He sprinkled all with blood. From his threats I thought it to be the ham of Atli. Hogni, we often slaughter largely, and then red we see. Often are oxen meant when we of eagles dream. Sound is the heart of Atli. Dream thou as thou mayest. With this they ended. All speeches have an end. The high-born awoke. There the like befell. Glaumvor had perceived that her dreams were ill-boding, adverse to Gunnar's going to and fro. Methought a gallows was for thee erected. Thou wentest to be hanged, that serpents ate thee, that I interred thee living, that the power's dissolution came. Divine thou what that portends. Methought a bloody glaive from thy sark was drawn. Ill it is such a dream to a consort to recount. Methought a lance was thrust through thy middle. Wolves howled on every side. Gunnar, where dogs run they are wont to bark. Oft bodes the bay of dogs the flight of javelins. Glaumvor, methought a river ran herein, through the whole house, that it roared violently, rushed over the benches, brake the feet of you brothers twain, nothing the water spared. Something will that portend. Methought dead women in the night came hither, not ill-clad were they. They would choose thee, forthwith invited thee to their seats. I ween thy Disir have forsaken thee. Gunnar, too late it is to speak. It is now so resolved. From the journey we shall not shrink, as it is decreed to go. Very probable it seems that our lives will be short. When colours were discernible, those on journey bent all rose up. The others fain would stay them. The 5 journeyed together. The huscarls were there present twice that number. It was ill devised. Snavar and Solvar, they were Hogni's sons. Orkning he was named, who them accompanied. A gentle shield-bearer was he, the brother of Hogni's wife. They went far appointed, until the firth them parted. Ever would their wives had stayed them. They would not be stayed. Glaumvor then spoke, Gunnar's consort. Vingi she addressed, as to her seemed fitting. I know not whether ye will requite us as we would. With treachery came the guest, if aught of ill betide. Then Vingi swore, little spared he himself. May him the Jotuns have, if towards you he lies. The gallows hold him, if aught against peace he meditates. Bera took up the word, she of gentle soul. Sail ye prosperous, and may success attend you. May it be as I pray, and if nothing hinder. Hogni answered, he to his kin meant well. Be of good cheer, you prudent, whatever may befall. Many say the same, though with great difference, for many little care how they depart from home. On each other then they looked before they parted. Then, I ween, their fates were severed, and their ways divided. Vigorously they rowed, their bark was well nigh riven, backward bending the waves they beat, ardently plied. Their oar-bands were broken, the rowlocks shattered. They made not the vessel fast before they quitted it. A little after, I will the end relate, they saw the mansion stand that Budli had possessed. Loud creaked the latticed gates when Hogni knocked. Then said Vingi what he had better not. Go far from the house, 'tis perilous to enter. I quickly enticed you to perdition. Ye shall forthwith be slain. With fair words I prayed your coming, though guile was under them. But just bide here, while a gallows I prepare. Hongi answered, little thought he of yielding, or of aught fearful that was to be proved. Think not to frighten us, try that seldom. If one word thou addest, thou wilt thy harm prolong. They rushed on Vingi and struck him dead, laid on their axes, while life within him throbbed. Atli his men assembled, in their byrnies they issued forth, went prepared so that a fence was between them. Words they bandied, all with rage boiling. Already had we resolved to take your lives away. Hogni, it looks but ill if ye have counselled. Even now ye are unprepared, and we one have fallen, smitten to death. One of your host was he. Furious they became when those words they heard. Their fingers stretched forth and their bowstrings seized, sharply shot and with shields themselves protected. In then came the tale of what without was passing. Loud before the hall they a thrall heard speak. Then incensed was Gudrun when the sad news she heard. Adorned with necklaces she tore them all asunder, so hurled the silver that the rings in shivers flew. Then she went out, not gently moved the doors, went forth void of fear, and the comers hailed, turned to the Niflungs. That was her last greeting. Truth attended it, more words she said. I sought by symbols to prevent your leaving home. Fate made no one resist, and yet you must come hither. Wisely she asked, might they not be appeased? No one consented, all answered no. Saw then the high-born lady that a hard game they played, a deadly deed she meditated, and her robe dashed aside, a naked falchion seized, and her kinsmen's lives defended. Skilful she was in warfare, where her hand she applied. Giuki's daughter caused 2 warriors to fall. Atli's brother she struck down. He must henceforth be born. So she the conflict managed, that she his foot struck off. Another 2 she smote, so that he never rose. To Hel she sent him, her hand trembled not. A conflict then ensued which was widely famed, but that excelled all else which Giuki's sons performed. So it is said the Niflungs, while yet they lived, with swords maintained the fight, corslets rent, helmets hewed, as their hearts prompted. At morning most they fought, until midday had passed, all early morn and the forenoon, ere the fight was ended. The field flowed with blood, until 18 had fallen. Bera's 2 sons and her brother had them overcome. Then the fierce Atli spoke, wroth though he was. "'Tis ill to look around, this is long of you. We were 30 warlike thanes, 11 survive. The chasm is too great. We were 5 brothers when Budli died. Now has Hel the half, 2 lie slain. A great affinity I obtained, that I cannot deny, pernicious woman, of which I have no benefit. Peace we have seldom had, since thou among us camest. Of kinsmen ye have bereft me, of riches often wronged. To Hel my sister ye have sent, that is to me most bitter." Gudrun. This thou callest to mind, Atli, but thou so first did act. My mother thou didst take, and for her treasures murder. My gifted niece with hunger thou didst cause to perish. Laughable to me it seems, when thou sorrows dost recount. The gods are to be thanked that it goes ill with thee. Atli. Jarls, I exhort you the sorrow to augment of that presumptuous woman. I would fain see it. Strive so to do, that Gudrun may lament. May I but see that in her lot she joys not. Take ye Hogni, and with a knife hack him. Cut out his heart, this you shall do. Gunnar the fierce to a gallows fasten. Do the work thoroughly, lure up the serpent. Hogni. Do as thou listest. Glad I will await it, stout I shall prove myself. I have ere now things much harder proved. Ye had a hindrance while unscathed we were. Now are we so wounded that our fate thou mayest command. Beatty spake, he was Atli's steward. Take we Hialli, but Hogni let us save. Let us do half the work. He is death-worthy. As long as he lives, a slug he will ever be. Terrified was the kettle-watcher. The place no longer held him. He could be a whiner. He clomb into every nook. Their conflict was his bane, as he the penalty must pay, and the day sad when he must from the swine die, from all good things which he had enjoyed. Budli's cook they took, and the knife brought towards him. Howled the wretched thrall, ere the point he felt, declared that he had time the gardens to manure, the vilest offices to do, if from death he might escape. Joyful indeed was Hialli, could he but save his life. Hogni all this observed. Few so act as for a slave to intercede that he may escape. Less 'tis, I say, for me to play this game myself. Why shall we here desire to listen to that screaming? Hands on the good prince they lay. There was no option for the bold warriors, the sentence longer to delay. Then laughed Hogni, heard the sons of day how he could hold out. Torment he well endured. A harp Gunnar took, with his foot branches touched it. He could so strike it that women wept, and the men sobbed who best could hear it. He the noble queen counselled, the rafters burst asunder. There died the noble as the dawn of day. At the last they caused their deeds to live. Atli thought himself great, over them both he strode, To the sagacious woman told the evil, and bitterly reproached her. "It is now morning, Gudrun. Thy loved ones thou hast lost. Partly thou art the cause that it has so befallen." Gudrun. "Joyful art thou, Atli, slaughter to announce. Repentance shall await thee when thou hast all proved. That heritage shall be left thee, that I can tell ye, that ill shall never from thee go, unless I also die." Atli. "That I can prevent. Another course I see, easier by half. The good we oft reject. With slaves I will console thee, with things most precious, with snow-white silver, as thou thyself mayest desire." Gudrun. "Of that there is no hope. I will all reject. Atonement I have spurned for smaller injuries. Hard I was ever thought, now will that be aggravated. I every grudge concealed while Hogni lived. We were both nurtured in one house, many a play we played, and in the wood grew up. Grimhild us adorned with gold and necklaces. For my brother's death never wilt thou indemnify me, nor ever do what shall to me seem good. Men's too great power women's lot oppresses. On the knee the hand sinks if the arms wither. The tree inclines if its root fibres are severed. Now, Atli, thou mayest alone over all here command." Most unwise this was, when to this the prince gave credit. The guile was manifest, had he been on his guard. Dissembling then was Gudrun. Against her heart she could speak, made herself gay appear, with 2 shields she played. A banquet she would prepare, her brother's funeral feast, the same would Atli also for his own do. With this they ended, the banquet was prepared, the feasting was too luxurious. The woman great of heart was stern, she warred on Budli's race, on her spouse she would cruel vengeance wreak. The young ones she enticed, and on a block laid them. The fierce babes were terrified, and wept not, to their mother's bosom crept, asked what she was going to do. "Ask no questions, both I intend to kill. Long have I desired to cut short your days. Slay as thou wilt thy children, no one hinders it. Thy rage will have short peace if thou destroyest us in our blooming years, thou desperate woman." It fell out accordingly. She cut the throats of both. Atli oft inquired whither his boys were gone to play, as he nowhere saw them. Gudrun. "Over I am resolved to go, and to Atli tell it. Grimhild's daughter will not conceal it from thee. Little glad, Atli, wilt thou be, when all thou learnest. Great woe didst thou raise up, when thou my brother slewest. Very seldom have I slept since they fell. Bitterly I threatened thee. Now I have reminded thee. It is morning, sayest thou. I yet it well remember, and it is now eve, when thou the like shalt learn. Thou thy sons hast lost, as thou least shouldest. Know that their skulls thou hast had for beer cups, thy drink I prepared, I their red blood have shed. I their hearts took, and on a spit staked them, then to thee gave them. I said they were of calves, it was long of thee alone. Thou didst leave none, voraciously didst devour, well didst ply thy teeth. Thy children's fate thou knowest, few a worse awaits. I have my part performed, though in it glory not. Atli. Cruel wast thou, Gudrun, who couldst so act, with thy children's blood my drink to mingle. Thou hast destroyed thy offspring, as thou least shouldest, and to myself thou leavest a short interval from ill. Gudrun. I could still desire thyself to slay, rarely too ill it fares with such a prince. Thou hast already perpetrated crimes unexampled among men of frantic cruelty in this world. Now thou hast added what we have just witnessed. A great misdeed hast thou committed. Thy death feast thou hast prepared. Atli. On the pile thou shalt be burnt, but first be stoned. Then wilt thou have earned what thou hast ever sought. Gudrun. Tell to thyself such griefs early tomorrow. By a fairer death I will pass to another light. In the same hall they sat, exchanged hostile thoughts, bandied words of hate. Each was ill at ease. Hate waxed in a Niflung, a great deed he meditated. To Gudrun he declared that he was Atli's deadly foe. Into her mind came Hogni's treatment. Happy she him accounted, if he vengeance wreaked. Then was Atli slain within a little space. Hogni's son him slew, and Gudrun herself. The bold king spake, roused up from sleep. Quickly he felt the wounds, said he no binding needed. Tell me most truly, who has slain Budli's son? I am hardly treated. Of life I have no hope. Gudrun. I, Grimhild's daughter, will not from thee hide that I am the cause that thy life passes away, but partly Hogni's son, that thy wounds make thee faint. Atli. To the slaughter thou hast rushed, although it ill beseemed thee. 'Tis bad to circumvent a friend who well confided in thee. Besought I went from home to woo thee, Gudrun. A widow thou was left, fierce thou wast accounted, which was no falsehood as we have proved. Hither home thou earnest, as a host of men attended, all was splendid on our journey. Pomp of all kinds was there, of illustrious men, beeves in abundance. Largely we enjoyed them. Of all things there was plenty partaken of by many. A marriage gift to my bride I gave, treasures for her acceptance, thralls thrice 10, 7 fair female slaves. In such things was honour, silver there was yet more. All seemed to thee as it were naught, while the lands untouched lay, which Budli had left me. So didst thou undermine, didst allow me nothing to receive. Thou didst my mother let often sit weeping. With heart content I found not one of my household after. Gudrun. Now, Atli, thou liest, though of that I little reck. Gentle I seldom was, yet didst thou greatly aggravate it. Young brothers ye fought together, among yourselves contended. To hell went the half from thy house. All went to ruin that should be for benefit. Brothers and sisters we were 3, we thought ourselves invincible. From the land we departed, we followed Sigurd. We roved about, each steered a ship, seeking luck we went, till to the east we came. The chief king we slew, there a land obtained, the Hursar yielded to us, that manifested fear. We from the forest freed him whom we wished harmless, raised him to prosperity who nothing had possessed. The Hun king died, then suddenly my fortune changed. Great was a young wife's grief, the widow's lot was hers. A torment to me it seemed to come living to the house of Atli. A hero had possessed me, sad was the loss. Thou didst never from a contest come, as we had heard, where thou didst gain thy cause or others overcome. Ever wouldst thou give way, and never stand, lettest all pass off quietly, as ill beseemed a king. Atli. Gudrun, now thou liest. Little will be bettered the lot of either. We have all suffered. Now act thou, Gudrun, of thy goodness, and for our honour when I forth am born. Gudrun. I a ship will buy, and a painted cyst. Will the winding sheet well wax to enwrap thy corpse. Will think of every requisite, as if we had each other loved. Atli was now a corpse. Lament from his kin arose. The illustrious woman did all she had promised. The wise woman would go to destroy herself. Her days were lengthened. She died another time. Happy is every one hereafter who shall give birth to such a daughter famed for deeds as Giuki begat. Ever will live, in every land, their oft-told tale, wherever people shall give ear.
This recording by Becky Cook.
Recording by Leni.
Recording by Foon.
Recording by Jeff Burke.
Recording by Kathrine. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.